with you for another week here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show, like we are every Sunday at 10 here on WFLA News. Andrew Duncan with the Duncan Duo team at LPT Realty. When we aren't on air, make sure to follow us at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, pretty much all of them. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. I have the little blue check mark, Andrew Duncan on Facebook and the Andrew Duncan on Instagram. So those are the platforms I'm personally most busy on, where the business is on all of them. So make sure to follow us on all those socials to keep up to date on what is going on with everything related to the Tampa Bay real estate market. I talked last week a lot about what I expect to happen in 2025's real estate market. Probably won't touch on too much of that today, simply because I've got some other things that I want to get to. But if you are thinking about selling your home in 2025, just go to duncanduo.com. We have all of the options available for you. If you simply want to get a cash offer and get out of your house, we can take you that path. If you and we can do that whether your house is needing massive work or whether your house is turnkey. We have buyers and cash buyers ready to make offers on properties, cash offers on properties, well above $1 million. So no matter your price point, no matter your need, we have the ability to help you. Again, that's duncanduo.com. You also get a free home value estimate. You can keep up to date on what is going on with your home value at duncanduo.com. And I think that's important because of what happened last year with the storms. Our market kind of segmented, last year and kind of split up into different factions. And so I want to explain this because our real estate market has really never been more more kind of sectioned off and segmented off into different product types, performing at a different pace than other product types. So prior to probably the last year or two, and the storm, of course, had a major impact on that based on geographics and whether a home is elevated or not. And so prior to the last couple of years, if you said prices were up in Tampa, prices were down in Tampa, it was pretty much statistically lining up against most product types and neighborhoods. Now, look, real estate is always going to be hyper local. You're always going to have some neighborhoods outperform other neighborhoods, but the reality was, if we said prices were up 5% in Tampa Bay, you could pretty comfortably predict that same appreciation rate was across different was the same or comparable, not the exact same, but comparable around different product types. So what has happened the last couple of years has caused our real estate market, almost like the stock market in a sense, to have these little factions and little product types that are performing at dramatically different numbers than other product types. So like if you look at the Dow Jones, for example, you've got tech stocks, you've got defense stocks, you've got real estate stocks, you've got financial stocks, you've got retail stocks, and you'll have different periods of time depending on what's going on with the economy that one sector will outperform the other, okay? And then you get a blended average of what's going on in the market. Well, in real estate, you do get the same thing, but the product types really hadn't had as drastic differentiation until they do now. And I want to explain why that is. Well, the first reason that is, a couple of years ago, if you all remember, we had a condo collapse in Miami that caused massive chaos. And then there was another one, I think, that collapsed. And so because of that, the state of Florida passed much more strict rules, and then all of the insurance agencies followed with guidelines of things that condo communities had to do or provide or inspect or survey to show that that wasn't going to happen to them. Well, those requirements increased costs for both insurance and to have those things done in those communities, and those costs end up getting passed to homeowners. So what ends up happening is, because our insurance has been in an environment, and even more so post-storm, where rates are rising, when you add all these extra costs and then you add the extra HOA fees to condo communities, it causes prices to soften and more people to want to sell because it's made it unaffordable for them. So what we've seen in the condo market specifically is a dramatic increase in the number of condos for sale, to a comparable number to what we saw during the Great Recession. The last check I had, it was between 12 to 15 months supply of inventory for condos available in Tampa Bay. Now, that is a a really big number. To put it into perspective, the entire market overall has around 4 or 5 months of inventory in most product segments when everything is blended in. Some areas, it's only 3 months for single-family homes. So to know that you've got 5x the month's supply inventory, that supply and demand curve is whacked for condos. Basically, it has become a massive buyer's market for condos specifically. Now, again, you'll have a community or a building here and there that's a bit of an outlier if it's in strong demand. And of course, the uber luxury stuff, above a couple of $1 million, some of those probably aren't as applicable to this because that crowd, affordability isn't really an important thing for them. So, as important of a thing, it's certainly still important. So what I mean by that is it's caused the condo market to perform much, much worse than the single-family market. Now, another segmentation. We have 2 major hurricanes that cause flooding and wind damage. The hurricanes didn't hit and cause damage in the entire area. One of them was mostly coastal. The other one was a little bit more broad in its scope. But nonetheless, there are a lot of parts of Tampa Bay that didn't really have any impact at all. And there are some that had a lot of impact. So basically, the hurricanes will certainly affect the entire market because it zaps our population growth. It canceled sales. It freaked buyers out. It freaked sellers out. And of course, there's expenses associated with repairing homes. And then, of course, selling homes that are not repaired that end up showing up as lower comps. So overall, the hurricanes have a negative impact. But where they have the most negative impact is in the neighborhoods that got hit the most. So what does it end up doing in those neighborhoods? It pulls prices down and creates extra supply because people say, number one, we want to move now because we don't want to go through that again. And number 2, we're willing to take a little bit of a break on our price so that the people that don't really want to move, now those become comps for those people. So it pulls the values down. So that's another segment of the market that's more impacted. The coastal areas and the areas that got hit more by the storms and the homes that were damaged. And then I think, so when you look at the condo multifamily segment of the marketplace, and then the flood impacted segments of the marketplace, and then a lot of other little things, you have a real estate market that has now a lot of segmented product types that are having different things happening. Whereas you might have a neighborhood that doesn't have any storm damage, obstacles, flooded homes within miles, do really, really well because it wasn't impacted as bad. And the suburbs might do better now as people move away from the coastal areas. New construction might do better now. But what it's caused is this fractioning of, pulling off different segments of the market and then those segments of the market not performing like the rest of the market as a whole. And don't get me wrong, it's always been that way, but it hasn't been as drastic. And you certainly didn't have the number of these things that happened during the same time frame kind of line up and all kind of bridge together. So that's the reason why there's so many obstacles in our real estate market and so much confusion out there. The other thing that I think is important for home sellers and home buyers to recognize, number one, we still have a real estate market and an economy that's fundamentally healthy once this stuff kind of clears out. So from a single family home perspective, the condo market, it's going to take a while for that to clear up. I mean, I'm just being honest. Like if you own a condo right now, it's like owning a stock that's been declining. And again, it doesn't apply to every neighborhood, but the majority of them are declining. So you own a stock that's going down in value, and do you want to write it down or do you want to get out before it gets worse? And unfortunately, there are a lot of home sellers that put their condo on the market right now, and they're not willing to listen to reality. Well, 6 months ago, this happened. Well, the last 6 months, it's been a bloodfest, and it's probably going to continue because we're 13 months of inventory. So the condo owners, if you, again, and I mentioned this before, if you have a condo on the market and it hasn't sold, lower your price. And I don't mean like $5,000. I mean, lower your price, like dramatic lowering of the price, because the buyers that are out there, they know everything that's the reason you're selling. They know the reason you're selling. And for them to take on the risk, they want a deal. You can't go back to what happened 3 or 6 months ago. It's fantasy land. It's gone. It's over. Like you can't talk about what happened 6 months ago in a condo sale and expect that you're going to get that today. The market has shifted, and sellers today have to get very aggressive with their price. If they're going to move their property, or of course have by far the best condition. So that's really what it boils down to. Real estate is always boiled down to when the market gets competitive. Now look, when the market isn't as competitive. When the market's competitive, everything sells. Anyone could sell real estate. Like people are printing money at 2% and 3% interest rates. Everyone's a buyer. People are buying as much as they can. The market's, skyrocketing prices. Everyone's winning. You can mess up and overpay for a property, but a year later it's worth more because the appreciation rate's so dramatic. That's not what we have now. Okay. We have a completely different market where now you have a lot of homes on the market. Okay. And you've got to compete. So you've got to have the best price, best condition. You've got to have some strong differentiating factor. I mean, strong, not some weak answer to be able to justify just getting yours sold, much less getting a reasonable value. Buyers know why all the condos are on the market. They can see the news. They can read the data. They know what's going on. They know insurance and HOA fees are going up. They know that about the milestone surveys. They know, and they can do the math. They can see there's 26 units for sale in here, and one sold last month. What does that mean? That means they should be able to get a deal and a steal. And if they can't, they just keep waiting until they can. And eventually, someone else in that community will be the person that sells to the next buyer and not you, unless you're willing to get really real about your price. So if you get real about your price, you'll move your property today. If you don't, you're just going to sit on the market and flounder, especially as a condo with 15 months supply of inventory. And that same thing applies to single family homes, probably just not as drastic and not as substantial in some neighborhoods where it didn't have as much storm impact and it's doing a little bit better. Hopefully that's helpful for you to understand kind of the overreaching theme of what's happening in real estate market right now and why we're having these different factions where our real estate market is more segmented into different product types and areas than it pretty much ever has been. So anyway, we're going to continue this conversation after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Real Estate Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market like we are every Sunday right here on WFLA News. I want to talk next to our to the real estate agent crowd out there. We're seeing a revolution in the real estate agent business right now from businesses that kind of held all of the worth of the business and that held the keys. It's very centralized and a small group of people to cloud-based real estate brokerages that allow agents to participate in the victories of the company. And, I joined LPT Realty in September of 2023 because it opened my eyes into what I owned as a franchise owner and what I didn't own. And when I really opened my eyes to the value you added, that I personally added to a real estate company, I realized even agents on a smaller level that don't operate as much as I do, or don't do as much production as my team, even those agents that do a handful of deals a year have the opportunity to benefit in the upside of the business and to do things that bring value to the business that historically hadn't brought as much value to the agent themselves. Things like recruiting agents and selling real estate and being a steward of the company and supporting the business. All of those things have started to change. It's one of the things I'm so excited about with LPT is that agents can build a retirement. A couple of years ago, I had an agent whose career was nearly done, was nearing retirement, and if they didn't sell another house, they really didn't have much left, for themselves. They were a great commission salesperson. They kept to themselves about their own personal financial life and probably made some bad financial decisions. But I didn't have an option for them to buy in and own a piece of a big company. I didn't have an option for them to earn stock in a company. I wasn't large enough to offer those things. So when I moved to LPT, I realized that every agent out there that is looking to the future and looking to maybe an end game for themselves, or even just simply from a wealth building perspective to have another opportunity at a cash out or a liquidity event, when I saw the opportunity on the table with LPT and I met with Robert Palmer, it completely opened my eyes to everything that I could do to help get people to LPT Realty to understand the opportunity and to grow my team. So if you're a real estate agent and you're struggling, and maybe you want a piece of that, or you've helped the business grow and you haven't shared in that victory of the mothership, reach out to us at jointheduo.com. We've got a few different paths we can take you. Again, that's jointheduo.com. If you're a team owner, if you're somebody that owns their own brokerage, I can sit down and talk you through the financials and see what's available for you to help you understand the benefits that you get from a marketing perspective, keeping things real estate first, helping your agents do more production. An owner that is growing massively, owns a sports team, owning a sports arena, owns a mortgage, owns all these other entities that help drive and fuel each other brilliantly. And if you're an agent, you want to be on this rocket ship. It completely blew my mind when I saw the availability, and the experience that I've had in the year and a few months that I've been there has been pretty awesome. So if you're interested in LPT, if you're interested in my team, if you're not doing the production you want to do, we've got a path for you. Again, jointheduo.com. You can register to set up a consultation, a confidential consultation with us. You can register for our career night for our team. You can also apply for one of our open positions to where we can share with you the reason that we brought our team to LPT Realty and why we believe it's a brokerage for life and has something for everyone. For the agent that's going to do a couple deals a year, to the agent that wants to build a mega team, to the agent that wants to have the number one team in America. It's got something for everyone. Again, you can find out more about that at jointheduo.com. And my real estate team is in growth mode this year. Excited to let the public know that last year with the storms and all the different things going on in our change, we had kind of carved out some of our advertising that we had normally done, and we're actually tripling our advertising budget for 2025 because we're committed to growing at a very fast pace this year. We want to grow. We want to improve our rankings. We want to do more production, and I want to add more value to real estate agents than I ever have. So if you're someone thinking about leaving the brokerage you're with, joining a team, joining a different team, not motivated or inspired where you are, you want to get around to A players, you want to get around somebody like me that's done what you want to accomplish, way better to learn from within than try to learn from outside. You can, again, go to jointheduo.com. Again, that is jointheduo.com. So real estate scams hit their highest number of dollars impacted in 2024. There are so many real estate scams out there, and I want to talk about those scams and help you avoid them, okay? I want to help you avoid real estate scams. Now, some of these things that I'm going to talk about may not necessarily aren't always a scam, but it's where some things can be a scam. So I'm going to talk about some of the common ones. So if you want to avoid real estate scams, stay with us. Here on the other side, we'll be back after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about real estate scams. And unfortunately, 2024 was a record-breaking year for scam artists that want to take advantage of people in the real estate industry. So I want to go through a few of these common scams, and we'll share some of these on our socials. So again, make sure you're following at the Duncan Duo. If you missed this, share with a friend. If you want somebody to avoid having a financial loss and avoid a scam, just hit us up at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So one of the most common scams is someone renting a property that they do not own, and you go to meet them at the property. They advertise it as if they're the real estate agent or that as if they're the owner. You go to the property and you give them a deposit, and they say, oh, we're going to get back to you, and here's a lease. You sign a lease. You gave them your deposit, and then you follow up with them, and guess what? They vanish because they didn't own the property. They weren't a real estate agent. They had no representation of the property. So that is a very common real estate scam right now that people are falling for. If a property, the key is when they do this, when they take one of these properties, what they typically do is they take a property that's for sale, okay, and then they advertise it for rent. The reason they do that is because some of the algorithms make it a little bit harder for the owner of the property to figure out what's going on or to be tipped off, because the property is being shown, it's likely vacant, someone doesn't live there. So they take this vacant property, okay, that has a lockbox, okay, they somehow have lockbox access or get lockbox access or find out the code. If it's a manual, they usually aren't doing this and letting people into homes that have electronic lockboxes. They're looking for homes with coded lockboxes. Then they show up, they meet you there, they tell you that they're the property manager or they're the realtor, okay, and then they take money from you. So they're typically doing it on a vacant house that's listed for sale, and they're also posing and saying that it's for rent. They'll often lie and say they're a part of the real estate brokerage that's selling the property to try and like get you to let your guard down. They'll present you with a fake lease, all this kind of stuff. Well, typically they have to do this really fast because they only have a few days before it's going to get caught. Someone's going to call into the real estate broker that has it listed for sale. Someone's going to tip off the owner. Someone's going to figure it out, or someone's going to smell scam from the person they're meeting with. They're either going to be suspicious, they're going to ask for a business card and the person doesn't have it. They're going to ask for their name and they're going to look them up and it's not the right person. They're going to find out they don't have a real estate license. They're going to look it up on tax rolls and find out that that's not the person that owns the property if they lied and said that that's what they did. So nonetheless, there's so much publicly information available that they only have a short period of time to try and scam someone. So what do they do to scam you if you're a renter? They put it at some unbelievable price for rent. Look, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. If the property should rent for $4,000 and they're advertising it for $1,300 a month, run. It's a scam. No landlord on earth is renting out their $4,000 a month property for $1,300. Okay? If it looks too good to be true, it is. It's a scam, okay? So they have this small amount of time. So because of that, they have to make such a sensational offer to try and scam someone out of money before it gets caught and blows up in their face. So as a renter, the things that you can do, number one, you can vet the person. You can somehow find out if they are really a property manager. Can you verify their photo? Do they have a business card? Can you look up the owner and find out if that person that described themselves is the owner? But also trust your gut instinct. So those are all things you can do to prevent yourself from being taken advantage of. But that is a very common scam in our real estate market right now. And again, it happens. We get calls all the time from people who are advertising our listings for rent. We weren't doing it. So be very, very cautious when you're handing over money to people. Again, because that specific reason. You need to be able to look up the entity. Is it a registered entity? Is that person a licensed real estate agent? And certainly, if they're pushing for cash, probably not a good sign. Okay. So all those things are reasons, ways you can avoid that particular scam. Another really common scam is from people that wholesale properties. And when I say a scam, there are a lot of legitimate wholesalers that really truly explain what's going on. And then there are some others that are pretty scammy because there's not a lot of regulation and they don't have to have a license. What a real estate wholesaler does, okay? A real estate wholesaler will come to you and offer you cash for your home. Well, what they'll basically do is explain to you it's not really them that's going to buy the property. They're going to put your home under contract, and they're going to say, we'll pay you $250 for your home, or we're going to close in 90 days, and we need a 45-day period. They're going to ask for these longer timelines because they don't have the money to buy your house, or they really don't want to buy your house. And secondly, they're basically trying to take the offer that you've accepted and sell the paper to someone else. Okay. Now, the reason I say a scam isn't because a lot of them aren't, but because a lot of people don't read the contract. And then they feel duped because they didn't know that that person really had no intention and wasn't going to close on their property. Some ways you can avoid tying up your property into a wholesale deal that lasts a really long time: ask for a bigger deposit. Okay. A lot of wholesalers want to put up a small dollar amount. They don't want the risk. Okay. They don't want to tie up their money. All right. Read your contract. Read it and ask questions before you sign it. Okay. Those are two things that can avoid you tying your property up into a wholesale deal where that person isn't going to buy it, and then you eat up a bunch of days on market when they don't find an end buyer. Okay. A second way you can avoid the wholesale game is you can ask a real estate agent or a lawyer to look at the contract. You can ask for some time to have the contract looked at. All right. If the person putting your home under contract wants to assign the contract, there's a portion of the contract that says assignability. If they want to assign the contract, they're not really buying your house. They're buying the contract so they can sell the contract to somebody else. You want that box to be unassignable, okay, not assignable, if they're a real legitimate buyer. Unless, of course, they say something like, we want it to be assignable, but only to an entity in which we own. So I have done that before because I didn't know which entity was going to end up owning it. Some of the hedge funds will change LLCs. Some of those things are okay. But if someone just wants a bare assignability clause, it's a sign. They're likely a wholesaler. Last but not least, avoid tying your property up for long periods of time. Make those periods shorter. Say, look, I'll give you 10 days. You're probably not losing a lot over 10 days, or I'll give you a few weeks. But again, homeowners call those scams. They're not always scams. A lot of times it's the homeowner's fault because the homeowner didn't read the contract. Again, I'm going to repeat this. I cannot tell you how many times we have people call our office and say, oh, I'm under contract with this buyer. Well, he's not really a buyer because he's never going to close on your home. He doesn't own any property in the county, never has closed on any property in the county under that entity. He's wholesaling your property. And, you just didn't read the contract. So read the contract. Another real estate scam. So we've got the wholesaler one. We've got the rental one, and then another really common real estate scam relates to wire transfers, escrow deposits, funds for closing. When in doubt, not just when in doubt, always call the title company and verify the wiring transfer instructions. Here's what happens, okay? Scammers can track the MLS, and they see that a property went pending, and somehow they hack into a real estate agent's email. Somehow they get your email one way or another, and they send you a spoof email trying to pose as the real estate agent, okay, saying, here are your wiring instructions. Well, first off, real estate agents don't and should not be ever sending wire instructions. Those come directly from a title company or an attorney, and when they come via email, call to verify. Okay. Do not send wires unless you have called the phone number for the title company or the attorney and verbally verified the wiring instructions. I am an owner of a title company. I cannot tell you how often we have to deal with this. And I personally buy a lot of real estate. And I know the wiring instructions. They change every few months because title companies change banks. But I call and verify, hey, look, is this still the wiring instructions? Is this still it? Is this, is it ending in this number? I still do that today. So whether it's a deposit for a property, whether it's the proceeds for closing, whether it's your down payment, it's a lot of money. Double verify the wire transfer instructions before you send out the money. Okay, so those are the most common real estate scams today. Hopefully those have helped you miss out on some of the scams going on. Last but not least, here's another one of the common real estate scams that we are going to see post-hurricane. Storms that did massive damage to homes, and the people that renovated them didn't actually do certain work, okay? Now, look, there is no question there's going to be a lot of unpermitted work completed because of the storms, okay? The reality is that the permit organizations were buried, they were behind, and people needed to get work done so that additional damage didn't happen. Things like, let's just use an example. There's an open hole in a roof. okay, and it's raining. You kind of can't really wait on a permit to fix that. You got to fix that pretty fast. So nonetheless, because of the storms, there's going to be unpermitted work, and of course that can always be scrutinized and looked into more. However, it doesn't always symbolize that corners were cut or work wasn't done properly. I'm just not a big supporter of the government in terms of believing that they even know what they're doing most of the time. So, the idea that a permit work checks off a higher quality box, I don't align with that personally. I think it's simply a lot of people opt to avoid the hassles of dealing with the government for a variety of reasons. But where you have to worry about it right now is, did they remove the baseboards? Did they really replace the drywall? Did they really cut it out? Is there mold behind there? So those are things like, did they actually do that stuff? Because we're seeing inspections now where people are popping off baseboards and there's mold behind it because they didn't even replace the baseboards. They aired it out and put some fans on it, and then didn't even actually remedy anything, but they made it smell good, they made it look good, and later on it's going to be a big mold problem for somebody. So if you're buying a home that was flooded, okay, and it's been renovated, double check everything, be extra scrutinizing. And sometimes it isn't necessarily the homeowner that cut corners. Sometimes it's the contractor. Sometimes it's who they hired cut corners. So it isn't always the homeowner's fault. Sometimes there may have been zero intent to scam anyone, but the contractor pocketed money, didn't do the drywall, put some cuts in it, made people think they did it, aired it out, thought, it'll be okay. And years will go by, and then eventually it's a mold problem. So be extra scrutinizing to make sure you don't get scammed by somebody that says they did work that they didn't do on a property that, that was renovated. So hopefully that's helpful for you. And again, scrutinize the stuff that didn't have permits, but it's not an actual always indication that something wasn't done right. There are plenty of times people do stuff not permitted that was, from a construction standpoint was done properly. They just simply wanted to avoid the government being in their business. They wanted to avoid the hassles of it. And certainly maybe they wanted to avoid the tax that they didn't like paying for whatever it is the government in whatever municipality charges you. So all those things relevant, but you need to do your due diligence, do your inspections, make sure you're happy. And, of course, also verify what impact that has on insurance, because sometimes it can, especially if it's like an addition. All those things can matter, but extra scrutiny on the homes that were flooded and needed renovation that are now supposedly turnkey. We'll be back wrapping up the show with our last segment after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show. So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market when we aren't on air at the Duncan Duo on all of our socials. If you're a real estate agent thinking about changes, tired of where you're at, wanting more upside, wanting ownership in the mothership, in the big company, join theduo.com. We can bring you on our team. We can introduce you to LPT Realty if you want to operate your own business within the cloud-based brokerage. So many options available for you, again, at jointheduo.com. I want to talk next about credit score tips. Look, we're post-holidays. This year was a rough year in Tampa Bay. Maybe you had a little retail therapy to make up for all the stress of the storms. Maybe you spent a little bit too much money and you're not quite in a good enough position with your credit or your income to buy a home. So I want to give you some tips, okay, to how to help your credit. Now, I've read a lot of articles on this. I've helped people with it through the years. Your credit score really matters from a standpoint of getting approved to take on debt and to finance things, okay? Whether it's a car, whether it's a house, there's probably not anything that's going to cost you more, be more important for you than buying a house. So there are some unique things, according to experience, that I found interesting that can improve your credit score. So getting on top of your score, though, little tweaks here and there could make a massive difference. It could get you over the threshold for a lower rate. So here's some tips on things you can do to improve your credit credit score. The first one, get on the electoral roll. I was surprised by this, but many people may not realize that being registered to vote can have a positive impact when it comes to your credit rating. It helps build your financial profile as it confirms your identity to lenders. Regularly review for mistakes in your credit report. If you see something that's not accurate, contact the credit reference agency to check. Checking your report can also thwart fraud. You can find things that are reported incorrectly. You can find old collection accounts that have shown up that hadn't for a long time. You want to keep up to date on what's going on in your credit profile. Look at it on the regular. Keep your credit card balances low. Okay. Using credit cards wisely can enhance your credit scores. Experience suggests aiming to keep balances below 30% of the credit limit. To avoid paying interest charges, it's also wise to try and repay the full amount of each month. So if you're on a 0% deal, okay, because there's been a lot of those, make sure you make your payment so that you don't get kicked out of that into the high rate, okay? But also, don't keep your head in the sand that once your 0% ends, you've got to divide the balance and then start making payments, or else you're not going to pay towards any principal. Keeping the credit card balances low is probably relative, though. If you keep the credit card balances a little high, a little higher than the 30%, but you pay them off over a really long period of time, sometimes that can actually help too. Build up your credit history. If you don't have a lot of accounts, adding extra accounts, bank accounts, credit cards, getting your name on household bills such as energy, water, and broadband can all help a positive credit score. Pay on time, of course. If you're going to miss a payment, try and call your lender. Sometimes the lender or the people you owe money, you can actually work with them to change how they may report that to the credit bureaus. Make the most of online eligibility tools that'll help you find credit deals. So look for things with soft credit pulls to enable an initial look at certain information so they don't leave a footprint behind, but also so that maybe you can lower your interest rate or increase the amount of your credit limit. Let your credit history mature. It's good to shop around for the best deals. For long-term credit accounts, keep them open. If you have a joint credit with someone, you have a financial association, meaning if you're no longer financially connected, ensure you break this link to prevent their credit history from affecting you when you apply. One other thing you can do that I didn't see mentioned in here is ask for increases in your credit limit. Okay. Now they mentioned 30%. You wanted to be 30% of the credit limit. Well, if you've got a high balance, another way to do that besides just simply paying it off is to have a higher credit limit. So there are a lot of experts out there that will encourage you to ask for higher credit limits. That doesn't mean go spend more money. It simply means to lower the ratio of the amount of credit you're using on that particular card. So those are all things that can help you improve your credit so that you can buy a home in 2025, so that you can refinance, you can do all the things you want to do. Maybe it's buy a car, maybe it's something completely else. But those are all things that can be helpful. So again, when we aren't on air, at the Duncan Duo, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, if you are thinking about selling your home, again, DuncanDuo.com. Our team has hundreds of years of combined experience, some of the best agents in the market. People have been with me a really long time. We have every option. We can focus on getting you maximum value. We can sell your luxury home. I have agents on my team that focus specifically on that. If you have a distressed property, if you have a property that you need to short sell, if you have a property that's in pre-foreclosure and you need options, those are all things we can help with, and so much more at DuncanDuo.com. So if you need to sell your home, we have every option available for you. You just simply go to DuncanDuo.com. You fill out your quick address. It should auto-populate from your phone, and should be a really quick and easy way to do that, again, at DuncanDuo.com. So thanks so much for tuning in. Have an awesome rest of your Sunday, Tampa Bay.